An ex-convict, and I became a rabbi in the year 2000.
Nobody deserves to be lost forever. Our tradition says nobody is allowed just to be thrown out without first being ministered to.
I always felt like everybody else had it together and I didn't. I was half a step off. There was something wrong with me. I started selling hot merchandise from my barber, who was a fence for the mafia. And it made me feel important because I had money. And I, for years, equated net worth and self-worth. I went to Ohio State for a year and I was running a gambling casino in my room. And it just kept snowballing. And I started writing bad checks. I did forgeries, I did insurance scams. So I was a true con man. And of course, the one I conned the most was myself. And then I started to go to prison out here, jail and prison. I got arrested for drunk driving, and I called up this attorney and I said, how much does it cost to pay off this ticket? You know, pay off the judge, whatever. And he said, you can't buy your way out of a ticket in California. And I said, what's the matter? Isn't this America? I got married, and I certainly didn't know what love was. And I felt love, but I didn't act loving. I have a daughter, Heather, who was born in 1980. And a month after she was born, I went to jail for a month because I had a probation, had a case on probation that I had to make restitution for, and I couldn't make the money, and so I gave them a bad check. Not smart. And I went to jail every year, jail or prison every year from 1978 through 1988. And I loved my daughter, and my daughter was and is tremendously important to me. And I hurt her greatly because I took away the trust that she could have that her father would hang out. And I got out in '85, and I promised my daughter I wouldn't go back. And a year later, I was on the run from the cops because all of my words didn't mean anything. I gave in to my feelings rather than what I knew was right, my principles. In 1986, and I called my first wife. I hadn't even been home for a month. And I said, come pick up this money. And she said, what bail bondsman do you want me to call? I said, don't call anybody. The man upstairs is trying to tell me something. And I have to sit here till I can figure it out. To this day, some 14 and a half years later, I still don't know where those words came from. They absolutely were God's words. They weren't mine. And then I went to Chino, the penitentiary in Chino, and I started to study with the rabbi, Mel Silverman. Actually, what happened was, I saw Mel, and I said to him, are you going to cut me loose too? Because addicts and victims, and we all think that everybody else does things to us. And he looked at me and he smiled, and he said, you're a Jew, you're one of my own, I could never cut you loose. I could never let go of you. And I cried. It was in 1987, February of 1987. And I cried that day like I hadn't cried since January of 1966 when my father died. So studying got me to be able to feel hope. I read the story of Jacob in the Bible, and he was a liar, a cheat, a con man, and a thief. Most rabbis will not describe him that way, however. And he made a return. He did tshuva, return, repentance and return. And so I felt like there was hope. And I started to study, and I read, and I prayed. And I got back to a life that I remembered as a teenager that I really loved. Because when I was going to temple and when I was active in my youth group, I loved that life. And I got hope. And then I met Harriet. she had opened up Beit Tshuva, and I came to work here, and the rest, as they say, is history. In 2004, President George Bush invited myself, Harriet Rosetto, and Harold Rothstein to a roundtable here in Los Angeles. I'm a socialist by upbringing, and I was meeting a Republican president. And it was very funny because people said, how could you go visit that man? How could you talk to him? And first of all, the President of the United States invites you. What are you going to say? No? Duh. And second of all, I found him to be a very charismatic, but also a deeply caring soul. And he said it. He said it when he walked in. He says, I'm an old drunk who got sober because I found God. And that certainly is my story, so we related on that level. And we started a correspondence, actually, through email, and he wrote me a beautiful note, handwritten note that I keep. June 11, 2004. Dear Mark, thanks for your email and thanks for your soul. You're a caring, compassionate man, and as a result, lives change and people live. I'm grateful to have met you. Best always, George W. Bush.
We want you to know that you're never lost. You have a built-in GPS, and that's called your soul. And that GPS always will bring you home as soon as you start to listen to it.
The truth is, I found life here. We've done it through truth and passion and purpose.